Hi there. We are in the peak of spring in the Northern Hemisphere, approaching the longest days of sunshine in the year, and it is green and lush outside my window today. I hope my voice finds you safe and cared for by a loved one, by the trees that help you breathe cleaner air, by a stranger's hand-me-downs left lovingly hung on their fence, by a group of people you turn to each week in prayer, or by your own dang vigilance and compassion for yourself and those you interact with. My name is Grover. Today is Friday, June 6th, and this is Grover Reads the News. Would you like a news update? If so, have a listen. If not, I'll offer again soon. And with that, let's hear some news. First up, we have U.S. domestic news about authoritarian vibes, the Supreme Court, and the U.S. economy. The U.S. political news this week careened from headline to headline, and I'm going to summarize a handful of events to paint the picture here, but it was a busy week. The number of people filing for unemployment this month hit the highest number since Donald Trump took office. Elon Musk criticized the Trump policy bill that passed the House last week as too spendy, and then the two narcissists that worked together just fine a couple weeks ago to fire thousands of workers who made sure that we knew about storms and fires and how to respond to bears in national parks. These two have been lobbing insults back and forth to each other on social media, and Musk implied that Trump should be impeached. And their back and forth fighting is taking up a lot of airtime in the media, so I'm telling you that that's happening, and then I'm not going to discuss it again today. The administration is preparing a massive military parade on Trump's birthday in Washington, D.C. on June 14th, dragging 7 million pounds of artillery and armor down the streets of the Capitol, where thousands of people don't have a place to live or enough to eat. So, I'm going to put a link in the sources section where you can locate an action in a town near you and join your neighbors in public protest or a banner drop. I'll be hosting a group line dance event in a park because meeting new people and practicing taking risks together and moving in coordination are tools that we need right now. And finally, the Supreme Court sided with a white, straight woman that she did have the right to sue for workplace discrimination against her, claiming that her workplace discriminated against straight people. Happy Pride Month, everyone. And this Supreme Court case opens a door for reverse discrimination claims by people already afforded historical and present cultural, economic, and political power in an unequal system. Next, I have an update about U.S. migrations and deportations. A Massachusetts judge has ordered that a high school senior who was arrested by ICE while on his way to volleyball practice should be released on a $2,000 bond after massive community outcry. The teenager was held in what Marcelo Gomez de Silva's lawyer described as horrendous conditions, sleeping for 5 days on a concrete floor and giving no access to showers, after a judge ordered the Trump administration to stop the transfer of 8 detainees who are from countries such as Cuba, Vietnam, Laos, and Mexico to war-torn southern Sudan. ICE officials admit that the detainees are being held in a shipping container situated next to an open burn pit in the African country of Djibouti, on the U.S.'s only military base on the continent. They're choosing to do this rather than fly the deportees back to the U.S. and finish the trial. In a different case, we now have the first instance of a deported person being returned to the U.S. after a judge's order. Content note that I am about to reference rape in this summary, and if you don't want to hear it, I encourage you to skip forward 30 seconds to the next topic. A gay Guatemalan asylum seeker was deported without a hearing But when he returned in February, a judge granted him protection from being removed to Guatemala. But then he was deported to Mexico without a chance to make his case. His lawyers say that during his trip north, he had been raped, kidnapped, and held for ransom in Mexico, so it wasn't safe to deport him to Mexico. After being flown back to the USA on the judge's order, this man is now being held in a detention facility in Arizona. Next, I have an update about an anti-Semitic attack in the US and an update on Palestine and Israel. On Sunday, a 45-year-old man with a makeshift flamethrower hurled an incendiary device into a group of mostly elderly Jewish people that had assembled to raise attention for Israeli hostages held in Gaza, reports the Associated Press and The Guardian. The man yelled "Free Palestine" before throwing the flames at the protesters. 8 people were injured, and following the shooting last week that I reported on of the Israeli embassy employees in D.C. by a different sole attacker, conversations about Jewish Americans fearing anti-Semitic attacks are expanding in the mainstream news. The Associated Press reports that Gazans seeking food aid have been shot at almost every day over the last week. 31 people were killed on Sunday morning, 3 on Monday, and 27 on Tuesday afternoon. The food distribution hubs are being run by a newly formed group of mainly American contractors under the name, quote, the Gazan Humanitarian Foundation, unquote. On Wednesday, the foundation paused their distribution to, quote, improve civilian safety, but they were discussing this with the Israeli military only, as far as the reporting shows. All the hubs are located in Israeli military zones where reporters have no direct access. Gazans are facing starvation after a 3-month aid blockade by the Israeli military, and these food hubs are the only place that aid is allowed to be distributed. Finally, I've got some hopeful science and nature news for you. Irene Wang at Reuters reports that scientists in Japan have developed a plastic that dissolves in seawater within hours. While scientists have long experimented with biodegradable plastics, researchers from the Center for Emergent Matter Science and the University of Tokyo say their new material breaks down much more quickly and leaves no residual trace. A lead researcher said the new material is as strong as petroleum-based plastics, but breaks down into its original components when exposed to salt. These components can then be further processed by naturally occurring bacteria, thereby avoiding generating microplastics that can harm aquatic life and enter the food chain. At a lab in Waco City near Tokyo, the team demonstrated a small piece of plastic vanishing in a container of salt water after it was stirred up for about an hour. We already have plastic garbage islands filling our oceans, killing sea life, and turning into our drinking water as microplastics. Without a change in the way we live, the UN Environmental Program has predicted plastic pollution will triple by 2040. And so, cheers to scientists doing the work. Let's get this material moving out and into the world. Thanks for joining me to hear the news today. The news can be a lot to face, and this week was no exception. And I'm glad we don't have to do it alone. We can do it together. As you move on with your day, I hope you get the wonder of seeing a bird land near you, like the red-headed one I just saw, and know that you share a capacity for wonder, for routine, and for migration with millions of human and non-human creatures across this globe. Thanks to those of you who've been sharing Grover Reads the News with your text threads and email lists. Slowly but surely more of you are joining us, and I'm glad you're here. If you listen via podcast, will you do me a solid and go ahead and give it a heart or a follow or 5 stars? It helps us reach more people. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the world you're making, wherever you are, with the people you're with and the hopes that you have. Until next time, be well.